Hi, I'm going to keep it relatively brief today and just I'm really extending on from where I was yesterday because I woke up this morning foggy. Now, the interesting thing is because my son's at home and I can't record when he's awake because he would just talk all the way through it. I wait till he's gone to bed to do this, and I've already moved through the feelings that I was feeling this morning because that fogginess had continued. And even though I got up this morning and I did my meditation, I did tapping, and I did a somatic sort of shake and bounce to move myself around, much to my son's amusement, I still couldn't shift this feeling of being in a fog. And it was like a weird feeling of kind of nothingness, like I'm floating. I'm not really here, and my brain can't really think. And I was trying to journal, and I thought, I don't really know what to journal on because, like, what do I even say? Like, what's going on for me today? I don't know. And it was just this, like, I don't really know feeling. Very floaty, that's how I would describe it. I know part of the thing that's going on for me at the moment is it's the summertime. So my son's home, but he's not away with his dad. He's at home with me all the time, which gives me less space to work. My house is in total chaos because he just, he just doesn't understand the whole concept of tidying up in the slightest. And he wants to eat every 2 hours, it feels like. And my whole life just feels jumbled and scattered. And like I'm not really able to do very much, even though actually this summer I have produced so much stuff and I've done so much to drive my business forward. So the irony is that I'm sat in this position where, and this is where the best way to be is when you get into these fogs and this way of thinking, you see all the negatives. And actually, what happens is you don't see actually, this is where I've done all this stuff already. So because I'm having a day where I don't feel great, I'm suddenly lumped that in and make everything one. Now, I'm going to give you a really good example of this. I hope my mum doesn't mind me using her as an example, but my mum has a condition that makes her memory very, very bad. And so, um, if we have in the winter like 2 or 3 bad days in a row, she'll start saying about how it's been like that for the whole winter. And I'm like, no, it hasn't. Or the same with the summer. If we have a couple of bad days, like a little bad run in the summer, unless it's been ridiculous, if it's just been normal summer, she'll say, oh, it's been an awful summer. I'm like, no, it hasn't. It's just been really awful last couple of days. And but it's a bit like that when you get hormonal. You have a bad day or a couple of bad days, and you suddenly think, oh, I'm always having bad days, and it's complete nonsense. So it's just learning to not allow your brain to extrapolate, allow your brain to kind of say, okay, this is now, right? I've only got now. And let's not start thinking about what it's been like for all of this time or what it's going to be like for all of this time, because things will change. And you know that I love to come up with Buddhist things. And one of the things to remember in Buddhism is nothing is permanent. And one of the things that I struggled with on that one is when you say nothing is permanent, that also means happiness isn't permanent and joy and those pleasurable states, because we could never live permanently in a happy state. It's just not possible to stay consistently in the same state all the time. We're human beings. We experience emotions. We experience encounters. They impact how we feel. And so the same is when the negative stuff comes up. Maybe you're hormonal. Maybe you're waking up foggy, and it's easy to think, oh, my life is just like this. But actually, that's not true. You're just having an experience right now, and it isn't permanent. It will change, and just kind of like going with that flow. That's what I try and remind myself of all the time. It doesn't always work, like I said, I'm human, but it does help a lot. And so when I'm going through this, there's two parts of me kind of having this conversation. There's a part of me that knows it's just cyclical, it's just a feeling, and you're just going to go through it. And there's another part, and I'm going to allow myself to rest through this because it will go really before I even know it. And then there's the other part of me that's like, I've got to hold it all together. I've got to fix it. I've got to achieve. I've got to do. And it's not allowing this one to creep in so much so that I can stay with this one that's just going. Let's just go with the flow. Let's just see what happens. So, like, some of the things that I'm learning to do is that I can allow myself to be foggy. Okay, being foggy is okay. Um, and I can allow myself, and this is an odd one, to feel a bit useless without actually being useless. So I can allow myself to be like, oh, well, I feel useless today. But then to say, but I'm not actually useless. And one of the things that I've been doing, and I mentioned this to somebody else today as well, actually, because what happens, and this is so true, we have this to-do list, right? It's massive. Do. And we get to the end of the day, and the things that our brain focuses on is what we didn't do. And that is like absolutely to do with the negativity bias. So if you had 200 things on your list and you did 199, your brain would focus on, well, I didn't do this, which is ludicrous, but that's what will happen. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do at the end of each day is write a done list. So all the things that I did that day, all the things I achieved, because then rather than like, it's kind of like changing the wiring of my brain. So rather than patterning on I didn't do, I didn't do, I didn't do, so I'm teaching my brain to look for the things I didn't do. If I start to write down the things that I did do, the things that I achieved, then I'm teaching my brain to look for the things that I've done, look for the things that I've achieved, and it creates a more positive loop in the brain, because when you are focusing on the things you achieve, you're much more likely to achieve more than when you're focusing on things you don't achieve, and then you feel that demotivation. So it's always working on the positive motivation, so the upward spiral rather than the downward spiral. And that's where I would describe it. And it's a bit like stepping into my business and the way I'm running things, the way I'm doing things. And that's why I'm sharing this, is because like I haven't got it all figured out, right? And it's accepting that I don't have it all figured out, and I might never have it all figured out. But this is real, right? This is what life is actually like. And I've been reflecting quite a lot recently on when you see, especially in the wellness space, and you see these people come on with their method of how things work. And if you follow their method, then there's no doubt that you will be perfectly healed like them, because they've just like flicked a switch and they've got no problems in their life. And I'm just like, that's the biggest load of BS I've ever heard. I've just literally, it just drives me nuts, because it's not real, right? There are not many people out there going from day to day with no issues. There's no shit they're carrying with them. They don't get, their emotions don't get impacted. They don't have to check in with their nervous system. They don't have to re-regulate. They don't have to go back. And this is a big one for me. I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life. And however much you think, and this is for me, right? Might be different for you, but for me, however much I think I have resolved a trauma, it comes back in a different layer, in a different way. And sometimes I find that a trauma that I think I've completely worked through, it hasn't bothered me, it can come back, and it's never as severe when it comes back, but I feel like I have to re-deal with that trauma again. And I can give you a perfect example of this. When I was 16 and I cut my dad out of my life, I took the decision. Now, when I had an argument with my dad, he would write me letters after the argument to apologise, but there would always be some kind of like angle of trying to lay along guilt onto me. And I used to read them, and it used to really bring up negative emotions. So when I was 16, I decided, rightly or wrongly, to throw away every letter or card or anything my dad had ever sent me. It's the kind of crazy stuff you do when you're 16 because you're not sensible. And he committed suicide when I was 25. It still didn't bother me. It never came up in my head. It was never an issue. And then when I was 38 and I was going through process to adopt, and I had to go through like my history, like every little detail, this issue of destroying my dad's letters, excuse me, came up. And I suddenly felt this wave of grief and this guilt and this regret. And this is like 22 years later. And I'm like, why is this coming up now? Excuse me, I'm coughing because I'm fairly certain there's emotional stuff coming up. And I had to work through that. It didn't take me long to go through it, because I was like, I've coped for the last 22 years without these letters. Like, I'm not going to suddenly think, oh, I really want to go and read them. I hadn't actually thought about them for over 20 years. They hadn't entered my head. And I'd forgotten that I'd even done that. They just were not, it was not on my radar. But all of a sudden, it became a thing. And so I think it's remembering that we have these traumas, and when they come up at a later time in life, this is not where I expect this video to go anyway. When they come up at a later time in life, they come up differently, and the trauma affects us in different ways. And because, especially if you've done lots of work like I have on the stuff that you have experienced, then it's always much easier to work through. You clear it, you go through it, and it's done. And so that when I hear people saying, I've been through this horrendous stuff in my life, and I did this ABC method, and wham bam, my life's sorted. I'm like running for the hills, because life doesn't work like that, not even slightly. So that's, I just wanted to say that and throw that in, just so that this is when I show you, like, I'm not perfect. That's why I show it, because this is real. This is actually what somebody on a healing journey looks like. It's messy, it's up and down, it's round and around, it's backwards and it's forwards, it's not linear, it just goes all over the place. And knowing that that is okay. So that being said, just a little exercise for you. What I'm doing anyway, the journal prompts that I'm thinking about is, what if like the fog and the slowness and not knowing are signs of becoming someone new? So like, what if that is actually a sign of me progressing? And what would that person trust in this moment? So just for me, starting to think about how I can embrace that as part of my new identity. As some days I will wake up and I will feel that, and maybe that's all part of the growth, maybe that's all part of the journey. And what can that person who accepts that, what can they trust in the moment when they feel that way? It's quite a challenging one to think about. So you have a think about that. I'll have a think about it. I mean, signs that I'm becoming someone new. Well, maybe because, yeah, I think there would have been a time, like now, if I feel that fogginess, I might take my time to wake up and just chill and not stress about it and know that it will clear. Whereas there was a time when if I'd have woken up like that, it would have been a disaster. Like, I've got to get through it. I've got to push through it. I've got to stop this. And it would have been a fight internally to get through it. So in some ways, sitting with that fog, sitting with that just not knowing feeling, is actually a sign that I am growing into the person that I want to be, the person who accepts where they are, who goes with the flow of life, who allows themselves to rest, who, yes, I'm still ambitious and I want to achieve, but I'm not going to do that at the expense of my well-being and my mental health and my physical health, and all of those things. They all come to making me the person that I am growing into. So yeah, that's my answer to that as I'm thinking about it. Hopefully you found this useful. So if you have, just share your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear what you've got to say about on the issue. And as always, like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in my group, The Sacred Pause.